So yeah, it's good to see you, bro. And thanks for reaching out to me, following up with me, and making this happen.
Yes, sir.
And you know what this is all about is the Prison to Promise podcast, getting stories from brothers and sisters who've been behind the wall, who may still be on paper, on parole or probation, but who are pursuing a life of promise post incarceration. And so that's why I got you here, you know, to hear your story with ultimate goal or the ultimate aim of sharing this story with other people who've been incarcerated with hopes of encouraging them and helping them to maybe have some light shone upon a roadmap or a path that they can choose for themselves to find success. So
Right,
that's
right. Okay. I definitely appreciate that. I like what you're doing. It's a
yeah,
pretty good platform to be going off of. A lot
yeah,
of people don't really want to share their story, and a lot of other people end up going down the same road because
so
they don't have anything to sort of compare their situation to.
mhm. Right on.
So for me, I got locked up.
So before you start there, tell the folk who you are, where you at.
All right, so my name is Travis Abercrombie. I'm from South Carolina, specifically Spartanburg, South Carolina. Uh, I'm the owner and founder of Resurgence Post Conviction Rehabilitation Program.
Hmm.
Uh, and basically, what I do is I've written my own workbook and I try to help with the cognitive therapy side of rehabilitation.
Hmm.
It's easy to tell people, hey, I need you to change.
Right.
It's easier for them to stop doing a particular behavior, but what's not easy is knowing what behavior to replace that with.
Hmm.
So that's where I come in. That's why I focus on. And this originated while I was doing my incarceration of 10 years in the Department of
Hmm.
Corrections here in South Carolina.
Dig it. And so, what made you want to do this type of um, work that you're doing?
Really just, first of all, doing it for myself.
Yeah.
Once I got incarcerated, I realized that I myself was in a deficit.
Mm.
Something was not right.
Hmm.
Uh, so I had to sit down with myself and sort of figure out what led me to make the decisions that I made that landed me in the Department of Corrections.
Yeah.
So it was more of an inward, outward moment. So
Yeah.
I really had to figure out what was going on with me.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I sort of, I want to say, I don't say finished, but mastered
Yeah.
that particular phase of it
Yeah.
that I started saying, you know what, now that I've learned this, let me see what I can do for other people.
Yeah. Because plenty of other people who were around you in the penitentiary, I'm almost certain, though we were in different penitentiaries in different states, the symptoms are the same, and that is probably that they needed the same kind of help, and
Right.
it was their thinking that got them in prison as well in most cases.
Right. And it's that same thing that keeps us in there
Absolutely.
because, you yourself know, like even getting out and finishing your bid,
Hmm.
you come home, if you haven't freed your mind, you're still incarcerated. You're
Mm.
still living life on the street as if you still are represented by a 6-digit number.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. Makes me think of that song them girls sang back in the day. I think it was In Vogue. And they said, free your mind and your ass will follow.
Hmm. There
Mm.
you go.
Yeah.
And that's the facts. So like I say, that's mainly what I focus on.
Yeah.
Like I said, I spent 10 years.
Hmm.
The first year or so, maybe first 2 years, again, was just my self-reflection, really just trying to get me right.
Hmm.
Uh, I ended up meeting a guy, two guys, matter of fact,
Hmm.
uh, through a mutual friend. Somebody, I think you might know this guy. You see him on LinkedIn a lot. Lester Young.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
did time with Lester Young.
Yeah.
And while we were incarcerated, he had this program called the Outright Program. It was him and another gentleman by the name of Lee Nelson.
Hmm.
And what they were doing, they was taking material like Crucial Conversations, Crucial Accountability, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People,
Hmm.
courses like that, and they were mass teaching it.
Hmm.
So I sat in through an invite, and I was like, man, this is needed,
Yeah.
really needed, because how many of us don't know how to communicate one with another? We
Right.
fighting in the cells because
Hmm.
we upset about one thing, but we don't know how to articulate it to our
Right.
cellmate, or we're at odds with the officers because we don't know how to articulate how we're really feeling or how they're making us feel.
Yeah.
So once I seen that and I felt it for myself, and it was just like, man, one, they're addressing the need that I want to address.
Hmm.
So I took every class they had.
Yeah.
So it was just like, man, pour into me. Let me get it all. And the more I did that, and the more they sort of opened up the door for me to be able to get up and, in a sense, speak my truth and
Yeah.
be able to teach some of these lessons. And I just really held on to that
Hmm.
because I was seeing lives change.
Hmm.
And, being incarcerated, it's not, one of those things that you see, oh man, this guy just did a 360. No, when you deal with incarceration, it's more gradual. You're
Yeah.
not looking for instantaneous, hey, I'm better type deal. It
Yeah.
doesn't work that way
Yeah.
because it took us, like for me, I was 21, 22. So it took me 21, 22 years to get the way I was. It's not going to take me, 5 years to redirect that all the way.
That's right.
So it's still a process for me now. And that's
Hmm.
one of the things that I teach people, with my curriculum. It's a process.
Hmm.
I developed a workbook that you can sit down with, but it's going to take you about a year or so to finish. You
Yeah.
just can't finish it in a month. You can't
Yeah.
finish it in 6 months because it's all about your self reflection.
Mm. Yeah, and that takes time. And I think
Yeah,
about, anything that's worthwhile, it's going to take time to do and do right.
right,
And these processes that we go through are reflected in nature. When nature goes through its full process is when it produces, the best outcomes, be it, flowers or fruit or, the sun going through its full cycle, whatever it is, when it goes to its full cycle,
right,
then we can say this thing is complete.
right. And for us, one of the key things when it comes to rehabilitation, because I like that cycle picture,
Hmm.
but you got to figure out where you fit in the cycle,
Yeah,
and you got to
absolutely.
figure out who you are in the cycle
Absolutely.
because it's different for humans than it is for plants,
This is true.
right?
True.
So it's like you got to figure out where you are in that
Mhm.
particular cycle. That way, you know how to go about your process.
Right. Where to
Because a
start.
lot of times we can be doing the wrong thing, thinking
Mhm.
that we're helping ourselves, and we're actually hurting ourselves
Yeah.
because
Mhm.
we don't know who we are in the process.
And I think that piece, and you said that multiple times within the last minute, who we are, who am I? And I think about, one of the first tenets of the ancient Kemetic people was, man, know thyself. Before
Mm,
you knew how to read, write, do anything, they wanted people to know themselves.
right, right. It's a must. And the only time that you really get to do that is that self reflection, that personal time.
Mhm.
And I think we handicap ourselves out here in society because we
Mhm.
really don't have that alone time.
Mhm.
Something's always going on. Either you're working, you're dealing with kids, you're
Mhm.
taking care of the home, whatever you're doing,
Mhm.
there's
Mhm.
always something going on.
Yeah, yeah.
So you don't really have that time to just sit back and be like, so what's leading me to this? What's making me do this?
Mhm. Mhm.
Uh, what can I integrate into my life now to make me better than I am today? You
Yeah.
don't have those times.
Well,
But
I would say we don't make that time because
indeed,
I think that, because we live such highly distracted lives with
hmm,
a multiplicity of things going on, as you just detailed, it makes it difficult to find that time.
right.
But
It's not
one
a
of
necessity.
it seems not to be, but as you indicated, it really is.
Hmm.
Because that's how we can become more empowered and more knowledgeable about what we need and what we can do and where we need to go. One of my
Right.
mentors, he always talked about, his name is Dr. Muhaddin Shakur, and he talks about, finding time for stillness, for
Mm,
silence, to reflect. And he said, and if you can't find that time, just turn off your phone and sit for 10 minutes or go for a walk without browsing your phone. You don't
hmm.
always have to sit and meditate, but you just need some alone time, some quiet time,
Right.
you know?
And that was one of the things that I learned uh, while listening to some of what Lester was teaching while I was incarcerated.
Mhm.
In the book of Seven Habits, one of the things that they point out is about urgency.
Mm.
So, like, the doctor mentioning being able to go for a walk,
Yeah.
but without browsing your phone.
Mhm.
What happens when your phone goes off and you're out here walking? we
Mm-hmm.
tend to look at it.
Mm-hmm.
But just because it goes off doesn't mean it's urgent. It doesn't mean this is a right now thing. It doesn't mean that it demands my attention,
That's right.
but we give it our attention.
That's right.
And when you get incarcerated, it's forced upon you. That stillness, that
Mm-hmm.
sense of, man, I need to figure something out is actually forced upon us because now you're just sitting in the cell. You
Yeah,
can't
yeah,
leave when you want to. You
that's
can't,
right.
well, you can pick up a phone, but
Uh-huh.
typically, if you don't have those means, you're not going about that way either.
Absolutely. And so you're forced to be with yourself, by yourself
Mm-hmm.
in that cell. And some folks just can't deal with that. So they find other types of distractions. So they never find this healing in this direction. Because as
Right.
you know, there's lots of things behind the wall to distract us.
Right. And this is one of the main reasons why you see a lot of men and a lot of women who, once they find themselves distracted because
Mm-hmm.
they don't want to deal with self, they
Mm-hmm.
go out and they distract others.
Yep.
Whether it be just being on the rock, watching TV in the game room, or for some, violence is a distraction. So
Mm-hmm.
they go and they mess with other people who may not be messing with anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just like, it's weird how we go about this thing. And it's like, even now, we still have distractions,
Mm-hmm.
but we are choosing which distractions we give our attention to.
Yes, sir.
And the power of choice is something that a lot of us don't even recognize we have.
Mm-hmm.
That
Mm-hmm.
is the strongest tool, given to man.
Yeah.
Oh, I can choose to be this way.
Yeah.
I can choose to do this today. I
Yeah.
can choose to do this tomorrow.
Yeah.
Oh,
I
I want
think
to do a business. I can choose to make this business successful. I can just let it die.
I think that's what really separates us from other creatures in on the earth is our
Mm-hmm.
ability to make, long range decisions,
Mm-hmm.
not just instantaneous, but long range decisions, choices. And that's what sets us up for success post incarceration or failure, I think,
Right.
for that matter.
Because we get to use our imagination.
Bam.
That's one of the main things that, I think we shut off. When
Mm-hmm.
we start going down that spiral
Mm-hmm.
that leads us, to a life of crime or
Mm-hmm.
to an instance of crime. Because sometimes it's not just a lifelong behavior. Sometimes it's just in that instance you make the
Mm-hmm.
wrong decision.
Mm-hmm.
We lack imagination. We don't exercise that because being able to make that choice, and as you said, like the long range,
Mm-hmm.
you got to use your imagination to see what the possible outcomes are
Yeah,
for
man.
whatever decision you're going to make.
Yeah.
And
It's
when we
chess,
fail to
baby.
use that imagination, it kills us.
It's chess. It's
Yeah.
chess. Not just one square. It's the next three squares,
Yeah.
even four.
Yeah. And it's fascinating that you brought that up because majority of the time people rather play checkers.
Yes, sir.
But
Yes,
chess is actually the game that we need to be focused on. Chess is the game of life.
bro.
Checkers is fun to play
Yeah,
and it's easy to win.
yeah,
However, chess requires you to use your mind. Checkers
absolutely.
doesn't.
And I'm telling you, when I was incarcerated in New York State's prison, I might have been in on my fourth or fifth year. And this older brother, we called him Panama. He knew how to play chess. I said, man, teach me this game. And that's just what he was telling me. This thing is life.
Mm-hmm.
Life. And so I learned chess. I'm not the best at it, but I understood the concept and I began to
Right.
apply it not only to my bid, but even thinking outside of the walls, seeing
Mm-hmm.
myself outside of the walls, manifesting it in my head even before it happened.
Right. And
You
that's
know?
that's real key because a lot of men and a lot of women that are incarcerated have family.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it be mother, father,
Mm-hmm.
daughter, son, they have family outside and they're waiting for us to return home and
Mm-hmm.
actually do something with ourselves.
Yeah, man.
And that really became like a reality for me because when I came home, nobody knew how to deal with me.
Mm,
It was like, man, you've been gone for 10 years. We don't really know how to approach you.
yeah. And you ain't the same old dude.
I ain't the same dude. And for me, it was a good thing.
Yes, sir.
But to them, it was scary
Yep.
because now I come out and I sort of have a different demeanor. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
aggressive or anything, but it's just like, I'm not used to this. So, how do we go about dialogue? How do we go about building and
Mm-hmm.
rebuilding these relationships? Because we don't really know how to approach you.
And some of these relationships, I would imagine you lost,
Yes.
you
And I
know?
had to let them go.
Uh-huh.
See, and I spent a good bit of my bid trying to determine who to keep and who to let go.
Mm,
And I actually wasted time.
mm,
And the reason I say I wasted time is because if that's supposed to be beneficial for me, trying to choose what relationships I keep and which ones I let go of isn't beneficial because they will move themselves.
mm-hmm.
You come home, they don't want to be around you, they remove themselves. It's
Yeah,
your job. The only thing you got to focus on is not chasing them back down,
that's right.
not bringing them back.
That's right.
So when it comes to like rehabilitation, this whole reentry mindset that I see going on
Mhm.
LinkedIn now, it really kind of amazes me because before I got incarcerated, this movement wasn't that big.
Right.
But now it seems like, every time I jump on LinkedIn, I see somebody doing reentry, and it's like,
Mhm.
man, that's great. There's
Oh,
no jealousy, there's no envy because
mhm.
we're all in this field, but we're all doing something different. We're all reaching a different audience.
That's right. That's
And it's
right.
like what you're doing is you're allowing, you're reaching out, you're doing that olive branch
Yeah.
type deal. Hey, listen, let me bring you in, let you speak because
Mhm.
my audience will probably love to hear you and vice
Absolutely.
versa. So it's just like, man, we have to continue that, each one teach one
Each one
and
reaching.
reach the masses. Because we're
Absolutely.
talking about trying to kill off mass incarceration. How do we think we're going to do that if we're only worried about us?
Right. Holding it in my corner. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Because this
it's,
is
it's not it's not how it works.
no, no, no. We have to, it makes me think of the old adage, and they say, how do you eat an elephant? It's one
Hmm.
bite at a time, you know, but everybody got to be biting.
Right,
Everybody got to be chewing at it.
right. And one of the things that I learned where they was talking about this like pie principle.
Mhm.
Everybody's trying to get a piece of the pie.
Yeah.
Very rarely do they understand that they can just bake another one.
Yeah. Oh, come on, man. Like
Like
that.
you done
Just
took
take
six
another one.
pieces, and I'm like,
Yeah.
man, you ain't leaving me nothing. Well,
Yeah.
I can go bake another one,
That's right.
and I can get six pieces of that. So
Right.
we both still win.
Right.
It's just gonna take a little bit more time.
That's right. And again, going back to that urgency,
Hmm.
some folks, they want it right now. They're not willing to take the time to let it go through its cycles,
Right.
invest in what they need to invest in for themselves.
And see that makes it. And when you talk about that long range thinking, this is where it really comes in because it's like if you want it right now,
Hmm.
it's only going to last for right now.
That's right.
You don't have anything else attached to it. There's no goals pushing this. It's just, oh, I want to be successful. I
Yeah.
want to be on the forefront. Well,
Yeah.
once you get out there, what do? You didn't
Right.
plan for this. So once
Right.
you get it, that's all you got.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, when folks are thinking about being successful, they have to define what is success and why do they want to be successful and what do
Right.
they want to be successful at, and what happens if they're not successful? I think these are some
Hmm.
conversations people have to have with themselves.
Right.
But one of the things you mentioned, and you dropped this word a couple times, and I want to go back to it, and that's this word rehabilitation. And I really think that well, I know and understand that a large percentage of our brothers and sisters who go to prison have come from situations of depravity. They haven't
Hmm.
had much. Um, or haven't had anything at all, almost for that nature. And so, in many regards, maybe they have not even been habilitated to begin with. You know?
Correct.
Yeah. So sometimes people have to be habilitated before we can even talk about rehabilitating or
Correct.
habilitating again. Because we know that
Correct.
penitentiary can break us down if we don't have the right supports.
Right. Because it's not geared to do anything for you outside of house you.
Yeah.
And that's why, like, that was one of the things that I studied because it's like you call yourselves the Department of Corrections, but what are you correcting?
Right.
Because really, you give me three hots in the cot and you
Mhm.
lead me to my own vices.
Yeah.
Either I choose to remove those vices or I allow them to get worse.
Yeah.
That's not correction.
I call
So
it the Department of Destruction.
that's really what it is. And not many of us survive it.
Right.
Just because we max out doesn't mean we survive the Department of Corrections.
We come out in worse cases than in worse situations than we went in most cases.
Right. And just going a little deeper for a second, outside of the mindset wise, if you don't have yourself together in a way to know what to do with your body, your mental health,
Mm-hmm.
that's a lot how we come out worse. I've
Yeah.
had guys who maxed out and within the first 30 days, they're dead.
Yeah.
They can't cope with life
Yeah.
out here.
Yeah.
It's totally different. They've been housed for 25, 30 years. And it's just like,
Yeah.
this is a totally different generation I'm coming into.
Mm-hmm.
And that's scary in and of itself.
Yes, sir.
But more to your point where you was talking about people, having to be habilitated first, it's true. And the problem is I think that a lot of people just have the wrong grounding.
Mm.
So it's like when we talk about habilitation and rehabilitation, you want them to have something that either they had and lost or that
Mm-hmm.
they never had.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem is some of us have had it, but maybe we had incomplete forms of it,
Mm.
which leads to the depravity that you were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So my job is like with my workbook, the whole book might not be for you,
Mm-hmm.
but that piece, those pieces that you might be missing,
Mm-hmm.
you'll be able to get them out of there.
Right. So what's
Right.
the name of your workbook?
The name of my workbook is the four levels of the 4 levels of reintegration.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So, and what that means is like when we talk about reentry, you are reintegrating yourself back into society,
Mm-hmm.
back into your family,
Mm-hmm.
back into the workforce.
Mm-hmm.
So I developed 4 different stages, 4 different levels, if you will, that they can pinpoint on and sort of get themselves in the position to take back everything that they lost.
Mm-hmm.
Because part of reentry, and the reason that my business is called Resurgence,
Mm-hmm.
is because it's all about one, you coming up, you're rising like the phoenix,
Mm-hmm.
right? But in order for you to do that, in order for you to regain who you are, you have to be willing to take that stuff back.
Mm-hmm.
So when you finish your incarceration, you're supposed to get your rights back.
Right.
By definition, you're supposed to get your rights back. Now, that
Mm-hmm.
doesn't happen,
Right.
but you automatically supposed to get that because you have completed your sentence.
Right. Right.
You're
Right.
automatically supposed to be welcomed back into society because you have
Paid your
completed your
debt.
sentence. You're supposed to be able to go out into the workforce and get a job because you have completed your sentence and paid
Mm-hmm.
your debt to society.
Mm-hmm.
But the reality is, this is not true for people who are impacted with the justice system.
Absolutely.
So I just try to shine a light and open up different doors and avenues for them to use
Mm-hmm.
because I can come behind a wall and tell people all type of good stuff. Hey, this is happening for me. This is happening for me, but it might not happen for them.
Mm-hmm.
So I got to make sure I paint a clear picture.
Yeah.
So when we talk about coming out and we're taking back everything,
Mm-hmm.
we got to prioritize that.
Right on.
And again, it goes back to that long range thinking you were speaking on.
Mm-hmm.
So when we talk about priorities, what's most important for me when I get out?
Mm-hmm.
And for me, in my situation, it was my kids.
Yeah.
I had to get out and sit down with my kids and have that conversation
Mm-hmm.
because they did not know. They were kind of sheltered from it because their mom didn't really want them to know that
Right.
I was incarcerated.
Right.
But I sat down and had a conversation with my daughter, and it was a great conversation. I really learned a lot from it. But one of the things that stood out to me was something that she said, and she told me that she really didn't know how to engage a relationship with me because she was scared that I was going to leave again.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just like, wow, that's eye opening.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm thinking like, oh man, I done been to jail, man. They really ain't gonna want to deal with me. But it has nothing to do with that. It has more to do with the abandonment issues that you have now instituted into their lives. I've been gone for 10 years.
Yeah, man.
And when we come back out into society and we're thinking that they're gonna welcome us with open arms, whatever amount of time that we were gone and incarcerated, we abandoned
Mm-hmm.
society. We abandoned our rights. Like we gave those rights up.
Mm-hmm.
And this has nothing to do, with individuals who might be falsely incarcerated.
Yeah.
But for those of us who actually did something to go to prison, we
Mm-hmm.
abandoned those rights.
Yeah. And we
But in order to
abandoned
get those
people.
rights back, in order to get that reputation back, in order to get that standing in society back, now you have to show that you're willing to pick them back up
Yeah.
because
And
they
that
didn't
might take
take
some
it from you.
time.
You gave it to them.
Right. And that's going to take you some time. Again, that process.
Right.
Yeah. Be it your relationships or regaining your rights or whatever it is.
Right.
The education, whatever. Yeah, it's a process.
Yeah.
We got to be willing to go through that.
Yeah. We got to have patience.
And so, again, your book is the 4 Levels of Reintegration.
Correct.
Where can people find your book?
I have a website, and it's also on my LinkedIn page.
Mm-hmm.
And when you go on LinkedIn, you can just type my name in, Travis Abercrombie, and it'll pop up. And there's a
Mm-hmm.
link under that website that allows you to go to it. You'll be able to buy books, different types of merchandise. They
Okay.
even do donations and everything online.
Okay, so people can go to LinkedIn and find you under Travis Abercrombie.
Correct.
And they can find links right there on your page.
Correct.
Book right on. I wanted to make sure we give that a plug. So anybody that's listening, it might be interested in finding your book and doing some workbook skills to maybe help themselves or get a book to send to one of their loved ones. It's important to have that information.
Right.
Yeah.
And I definitely do that. If they order books from me, I normally send them in myself.
Yeah.
Because as you know, with the Department of Corrections, family can't send good material in like that.
Right.
So
Right.
it has
Right.
to come from a publisher or Amazon or something like that.
Right. 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 Indeed. Indeed. So, we talked a whole lot about, the importance of mindset and patience and, processes and whatnot. Aside from what you learned while you were in the penitentiary, can you talk a little bit about the importance of having support when you come out, and how did that help you make the transition?
Okay, so for me, the support is a big factor.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and I was kind of surprised with my support.
Mm-hmm.
Like, of course, my mom wrote me. She communicated with me by phone. She would come see me. All that is great, but it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't really equate to support.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so while I was incarcerated, I sort of fixed my mind to get out and just do things independently on my own.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really need anybody. I love them. They love me, but let me do what I do.
Mm-hmm.
So what ended up happening was I got out. I had everything set up. I was working at the chaplain's office, and we sort of got in with a group that was in Colombia.
Mm-hmm.
I said, I'm gonna go to this halfway house, do what I do, get my foot in,
Mm-hmm.
then I'll integrate back with my family. Didn't work that way. One of my first stops was coming over here to Cowpens and seeing my sister.
Mm-hmm.
Just I was incarcerated, my sister got married, bought a
Mm-hmm.
house, paid it
Mm-hmm.
off, everything. And I was like, man, haven't been going that long. So she was asking me what I was going to do. So I started telling her, hey, listen, I'm going to do this, 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 and this. And then I'll work my way back this way. And she was like, why would you do that?
Right. You've been gone too long already.
Right. And I didn't have an answer for it because I didn't know what she was hitting at. And she was like, listen, I got a whole basement downstairs.
Mm.
You ain't got to go nowhere. We'll make sure you got everything you need to help you get started. And then you go from there.
Mm.
So instead of me shunning that opportunity, I had to think about it. You're still giving me accountability here
Yeah.
because you're going to give me some resources, but it's still up to me to do what I need to do with those resources.
Right.
So they bought me a phone.
Mm.
Her husband owns a business. He put me to work immediately. I was
Mm.
only there for 30 days because I went and found something else. But at the
Right.
same time, he put it at, if you want to work, here you go. Here's a job. What you want to do?
Mm-hmm.
And it was manual labor. But guess what? I did want a job.
Yeah.
I did want to show that I'm different from the man that left the streets.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So they gave me, different opportunities and avenues that I could use. And to me, that is support. Give me resources.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can tell somebody you love them all the time that doesn't support them and
Yeah.
push them and motivate them to
Yeah.
be different or to be better.
No.
But you have
No.
to offer resources. Can you get me a job? Can you
Mm.
help me get a job? If I can get a job, can you help me get the ID, the social
Yeah.
security cards, the birth
Yeah.
certificates, those
Yeah.
type of things?
No.
That is the support that myself and other individuals getting out of the Department of Corrections need. We need
Mm-hmm.
those type of resources because without them,
Mm-hmm.
we're gonna keep feeding the recidivism rate. We're gonna
Right.
go right back to prison, or
Yeah.
we're gonna end up dead.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And we know lots of people end up dead coming out of there, as you illustrated, some of the men you have worked with. And it's the
Right.
same with me, some of the men I've worked with as well, and women, for that matter.
Mhm.
So being able to have someone who can plug you into resources is important. That's the important support more than
Right.
anything. Yeah, I could dig it, man. And so, we're coming up on like some of our last minutes together, you know. at least for now, because I got a sense we're going to stay in touch with each other. Especially I'm in North Carolina, you're in South Carolina, so
Oh, see, look at there.
yeah, we're not too far apart, you know.
Okay.
But one of the things I want to ask you, I don't always ask everybody this, but if you could talk to a young Travis, what would be some of the key things you tell him to help prevent him from going the route that you took?
Hmm. That is a great question.
I'm
And
gonna hit you with
honestly,
another one too.
well, I'm gonna tell you my answer to this one. I wouldn't tell him anything,
Hmm.
and I'm gonna tell you why. This
Hmm.
might not make sense to a lot of people, but because of my incarceration, I am a different caliber of Travis in a
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah.
Without incarceration, I would not be right here. Without incarceration, I wouldn't have the Resurgence post conviction rehabilitation program.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And to me, that's very key because I don't feel for people if I've never been in that situation. I can't empathize.
Right.
But having been through it, it's like,
Mhm.
man, I got to do something to help this situation out, to help it be better.
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't have any advice for him. Just keep doing what you're doing because guess what? You're going to learn from those mistakes
Yeah.
later on down the road. And that's one of the things like with parenting, we try to keep our kids from making mistakes,
Mhm.
but making those mistakes is where they learn the most lessons.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's consistent with another conversation I just had maybe an hour ago. The man who I was talking to said something very similar. He was like, we can't get everything right. And it's only
Right.
through making mistakes that we learn.
Right.
But I think about, prison is such a traumatic experience, and I wouldn't want young Craig to have to experience that trauma ever again, especially the strip searches, especially the
Yeah.
violence that happens around there. I've been out over 20 years, man. I still grapple with some of the stuff I witnessed and had to go through while I was in prison.
Yeah. I do too. And you know what though? It keeps me grounded
Yeah, man.
because without those traumas, without those memories,
Yeah,
you could easily go right back into what you used to do. But those traumas keep you from doing it because it's almost like a barrier now.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Right on. Keep you from slipping back into the
Yep.
darkness. So my next question I want to hit you with is if you could capture your journey in a title, or say it was a book title, the name your journey was a book title or it was on a marquee, what would it say?
Hmm. Hmm.
Told you I was gonna hit you with a nothing.
Yeah, that's a nice one. You know what? I would say resurgence in the making
Mm, because
because one of the key things about resurgence is bouncing back,
mm,
right? But we started our conversation off stating the fact that this is a process.
yeah.
So resurgence in the making would mean a lot to just my overall lifespan
Hmm.
because I went from being in one place making bad decisions, then I hit right here in the middle. I'm incarcerated. I spend 10 years, I get out, but now I'm building everything back.
Mm,
And the funny thing is, when talking about resurgence and bouncing back, I have more now than I had before I went to prison.
hmm.
And that's without a record.
Yeah,
So it wasn't until after I was incarcerated that I bought a house.
yeah,
It wasn't until after I was incarcerated that I actually bought a car,
yeah.
right? It wasn't until after I was incarcerated I was able to really just pour into my kids because now I have something to pour into them.
Right.
I didn't value relationships.
Yeah.
So now I have a long standing relationship that's in great standing. I'm not out here just messing with everybody.
Right,
So it's like
right.
incarceration really sort of set me in a position to sort of take control of my life.
Mm,
So everything that I gave up and I relinquished, I abandoned.
yeah.
Now I'm in the process of taking all that stuff back.
Dig it, man. Resurgence in the making. I could dig that. And when I think about the prefix re, it means to do again, to bounce
Hmm.
back, as you mentioned. And so I'm trying to think if there's anything else I want to ask you. We got about 2 minutes. And yeah, I'm out. If there's some brother out there listening, some sister out there listening, what nugget of wisdom could you drop on them?
don't let your mistakes define you.
Mm.
It's always up to you to define your mistakes.
Yeah.
Because if we think about some of the greats, and the first one that pops in my head, Kobe Bryant,
Mm.
right? We know he had a bout with infidelity
Yeah.
between him and his wife. Uh, Public knowledge. But he didn't let that define him. He thought about it. What can I do to fix this situation? One,
Mhm.
he got right with his relationship with his wife.
Yeah.
Second, he stayed in the league, changed his number,
Mm.
because now the number that he had before, that 24, man, it's soiled now.
You're right.
All right, so now I'm gonna be number 8.
Yeah.
But what he did was
That
he
great.
played at a higher caliber.
Yeah.
People didn't forget about it,
Hmm.
but his success defined how they look at that mistake.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when these individuals are coming out, when they're growing up, when they're in their adolescence, they need to be knowing, learn from these mistakes, and then you, by your actions after those mistakes, will define how people view you
Mm.
and any other mistake that you make.
Absolutely. Right on. And yo, Travis, with that, I'm going to say it's been great talking with you. I appreciate your time, your wisdom, and your insight.
Yeah, it was definitely a pleasure.
Right on, brother.
But we'll be hearing from each other. I'll reach out to you. I'll probably shoot you my number on LinkedIn.